Chosen one, you felt it before the words ever came, before anyone told you who you were, before the world tried to write your story for you. There was something ancient within you, knowing too deep to explain and too powerful to silence. They told you to be normal, to blend into play small, to quiet the fire in your chest. But the fire was never theirs to extinguish. You were not made to walk the same road as others. And every time you tried to follow their path, it felt like betrayal, not to them, but to yourself, because your soul always knew you were not born to be a copy. You were born to disrupt. You've been questioned, criticized, laughed at, made to feel like your difference was a defect, but it wasn't. It was a signal, a frequency, only those like you can hear, and now it calls louder than ever, because this moment right now is not just a moment in time. It is an unveiling, a remembering. The illusions of this world have tried to trap you, convince you that your doubt is stronger than your knowing, that your fear is more real than your fire. But you were never meant to believe their version of reality. You were meant to see through it. Look around you. Feel what stirs beneath the noise. Something is cracking. Something is shifting, and it isn't the world. It's youth. Layers they placed upon you are falling away, and underneath it all, what remains is what has always been there, unshaken, unbreakable, undeniable. This message is not a performance. It is not for entertainment. It is a call to you, to the one who has always walked on the edge of understanding, to the one who feels the pull but cannot explain. Why, to the one who is not asleep but also not yet fully awake. You, yes. Youth one, reading these words and feeling their weight. This is not random. This is not coincidence. This is alignment. You have been trained in silence, refined in solitude. You were not forgotten. You were being prepared. Every betrayal, every heartbreak, every failure was not a punishment. It was instruction and end. Now the teacher steps aside because the warrior rises. The divine warrior does not wear armor of steel. They carry truth like a sword, presence like a shield. They walk through fire without fear, not because they don't feel it, but because they've been forged by it. You are not delicate. You are not too much. You are exact. You are divine calibration. The systems that tried to contain you are collapsing. Structures built to silence your voice are disintegrating. The cages designed to keep your power dormant are resting at the hinges because they forgot something crucial. You were never theirs to control. There is something sacred about what you carry, something that terrifies the ones who only understand shadows. Your light, your presence, your awakening. Thief called you too intense, too sensitive, too different. But they missed the truth. You are too awake to pretend anymore. The roles they gave you no longer fit. The masks you wore now suffocate, and the script they handed you, you've already burned it. This isn't a rebellion. This is a return to the origin, to the truth, to who you were before the world told you who to be. Are not beginning now. You are continuing, because this path has no start. It has only remembrance, and in this remembrance you are unstoppably. You walked alone long enough. You were never truly alone. There were always whisper signs, alignments, moments, too precise to be chance. Those were not accidents. They were confirmations, echoes from the divine telling you, keep going. You are not broken. You are breaking free. You don't need permission. You don't need approval. You need only one thing to remember. The world may try to deny your power, but it cannot unmake it. And now you are rising in a way that cannot be undone. This is your moment, not to wait, not to wonder, but to stand. And as you stand, others will feel it. They won't know why they feel drawn to you, why your voice lingers in their memory, why your presence seems to shake the very room. But you will know, because it is not you. They are drawn to it, is what moves through you. You are not here to be liked. You are here to be light. And that light is not soft. It is searing, purifying, awakening. You don't need to convince anyone. Your being is your statement. Your breath is your broadcast. Let them doubt. Let them fear. Let them misunderstand. You didn't come to fit into their understanding. You came to expand at this. Is your initiation. You've already passed the test they didn't know they gave you. Because you stayed. Because you endured. Because you believed when belief made no sense. And now as you read these words, something within you responds. It does not ask, it knows, it remembers. Before we continue, take a breath, not just with your lungs, but with your soul. Let the words settle, let the truth rise. Because from this point on, there is no going back. Have you ever felt like you are never meant to fit in, but to stand out? Disrupt and remember? Not because of ego, but because something ancient within you refused to stay silent. This message found you for a reason. You're not watching this by mistake, you're being reminded. Subscribe. Now, if your soul recognizes this truth, comment, "I remember," below, not to be seen, but to declare who you are becoming. Your presence is not random. It's a signal. And your voice, even in silence, carries power. This isn't just a video. It's your mirror. And once the remembering begins, nothing will stop it. And if these words stir something ancient within you, if you feel the resonance, if you sense that this is not just a video, but a mirror, then let the universe feel your intention. Comment, "I remember," below, not for others, but for yourself, as a declaration, as a vibration, as the beginning of your movement. You were not made for silence. You were made for revolution, but not one of destruction, one of remembrance. You carry the blueprint. You are the key, you are the code, you are the shift. And now it begins. You never craved attention. You craved understanding. You wanted someone, anyone, to see beneath the surface. The smile, not the silence, but the storm you've carried with grace. Even when they celebrated your stillness, you were managing chaos within. Even when they called you calm, they didn't know you were holding back earthquakes with your breath. This is why it hurts so much. Not because they rejected you, but because they didn't even know what they were rejecting. They never saw you, not truly. They responded to the mask, but not the soul. And for too long, you wore that mask just to keep the peace. But now there is no more peace in pretending, no more safety in silence, no more comfort in compression. Because compression creates pressure, and pressure awakens force. And you are that force. Now the version of you that stayed small for their comfort no longer exists. This isn't rebellion, it's realignment. This isn't anger, it's awakening. You didn't fit in because you were never meant to fit. You were always meant to be the crack in the illusion, the opening in the pattern, the signal that says there is more than this. And now that signal is rising in you, and it will not be stopped. Chosen one. They mistook your silence for surrender. They thought your stillness meant you had forgotten. But they never understood that silence is where your power grows, and stillness is where your fire breathes. You never stopped. You were becoming. The world tried to contain you, tried to wrap your soul in boxes labeled safe, acceptable, normal, but your spirit was never meant to live in containment. You are not designed for obedience. You are made to rise. Even in your quietest moments, something ancient moved through you, a force that did not need to shout to be heard, and knowing that could not be taught, only remembered. And that memory now burns through the layers they placed upon you. You did not ask for permission to awaken, because the fire inside of you never asked, was always waiting, patient. Rainsy Lee walked among the noise, seeing the illusions lived inside the lies they taught as truth. And yet you always knew something was off. Something didn't fit. That something was you. You were the piece they couldn't explain, the variable. They couldn't calculate, the spark they couldn't extinguish. You've spent years trying to explain yourself, trying to make others see, trying to translate the language of your soul into their limited tongue. But no more. Your awakening is not a conversation. It's a declaration. You don't need to be understood. You need to be. You don't need to explain your purpose. You need to live it, because the fire inside of you is not here to be admired. It's here to transform, to burn away illusions, to clear the debris of what no longer serves. to make space. For truth, and yes, it has cost you. People have left paths, have closed walls, have risen, but every loss was a clearing, every ending was sacred. Ones who walked away were never aligned with where you're going, and you kept moving even when your feet trembled even. When the road disappeared beneath you, you walked in faith, not by sight. That is what makes you divine, not perfection, but presence, not answers, but alignment. You didn't survive the fire, you are the fire. And that fire cannot be explained to those who fear its heat. They will say you've changed, that you've become distant, that you don't smile the same, but you will know you. There simply stopped dimming yourself to comfort the blind. You're not angry, you're awake. Old world doesn't recognize you because you no longer belong to it. The dreams they sold you no longer feed youth. Roles they handed you no longer fit because the you who accepted those roles no longer exists. They stepped through the threshold, and the past cannot follow you here. It will try, oh, how it will try, with memories, with doubt, with familiar patterns. But none of it holds weight anymore, because truth has a frequency, and once you've heard it, you can't unhear it. You can't pretend it's not there. You can't pretend you didn't feel it wake up in your bones. Now that you've remembered, you cannot be controlled, not by fear, by shame, not by stories written by hands that never knew your name. You are no longer playing the part they cast. For you are writing your own script, and your story begins with this: I will not be tamed. There is no version of this awakening that fits into comfort. There is no path forward that allows you to remain small. You were not chosen to blend in. You were chosen to illuminate, and that illumination is not soft light. It is revelation. It is confrontation. It is the kind of light that makes the hidden tremble. Do not fear their discomfort. It is not your responsibility to ease them into the truth. Your presence alone is the warning. Your movement is the prophecy. You were born for this. And the moment you stopped apologizing for your light, the chains shattered. The veils lifted, the echoes alleged. You've heard them, the silent confirmations, the divine interruptions. Coincidences that speak louder than logic. They weren't signs for you to question. They were answers waiting for your readiness, and now you are ready, not because you feel brave, but because you are tired of being silent, not because you are fearless, because your fear no longer owns youth. Fire in you does not wait for approval. It moves, it claims, it transforms. And now as you stand in the flame, you begin to remember something deeper, something unspoken, something holy. You are not here to survive the world, you are here to change it. The illusions they worship are fading. The systems they trust are trembling. And in the midst of that collapse, you rise, you lead. You burn with the knowing that all of this was for something. Your pain was not wasted. Your delays were not denial. Your loneliness was not punishment. It was the preparation for presence. And now you carry that presence like a weapon. Sharp select tracks stopped chasing, and the world begins to come to you. Because you demanded it, but because you became it. You became the answer. You became the shift. You became the vibration that cannot be denied. As you move forward, you don't need to shout. You don't need to prove. You only need to continue, because the fire in you was never meant to be understood, only felt. And those who feel it will find you, will rise with you, will remember with you. This is not a performance. This is the beginning of everything you are meant to become. Let those who are meant to fade, fade. Let those who are meant to rise, rise. But you, chosen one, you were never meant to be controlled. You were meant to awaken the world. Chosen one. World around you was never built for you. Not the way they said, not the way they promised. They told you to follow the rules, to speak when spoken. Toto, stay in line. But you are never made for lines. You were made for thresholds, for crossing, for stepping beyond. And because you were different, they called you wrong. They wrapped their fear in authority and named it guidance. They used shame as instruction and called it education. But what they were really doing was trying to break the light inside of you before it ever had a chance to shine. They didn't understand you, so They tried to reshape you into something familiar, something small, something silent. But you are not small, and you are never meant to be silent. You were born with questions, not to disrupt, but to remember, because questions are the beginning of remembrance. And you never stopped asking, why do I feel this way? Why does everyone pretend? Why does no one speak of what is real? They told you to sit still, to behave, to agree, but inside of you, something sacred stirred, and it would not be tamed. This system, this construct built of fear and repetition, was never made for the awakened. It was designed to make you forget your power, forget your voice, forget your vision. But you didn't forget, not completely. You carried the ember even when the flame seemed lost. There were days it felt like defeat, nights that swallowed you whole, moments you questioned if maybe they were right, maybe you were the broken one. But broken things don't burn like you do. Wounded, yes, weary, yes, but never broken. The system was relentless. It disguised obedience as safety and silence as peace. But deep inside you knew the difference, because every time you complied, you felt yourself fading, and every time you rebelled, you remembered who you were. You were never theirs to shape. You were not clay in their hands. You were fire under pressure. And the more they tried to contain you, the hotter you burned. They taught you to shrink, to smile when it hurt, to be polite when your soul screamed. But you listened to the scream. You heard it louder than their commands. And now that scream has become a voice. That voice has become a roar. And that roar has become truth. You didn't break. You evolved. Every attempt to reduce you refined you. Every lie they told you sharpened your clarity. Every door they slammed redirected your path to something greater. They tried to bury you, but you are not soil. You are seed. And seed only grows in darkness. You learn to see in the dark. You learn to walk when no one showed you the way. You learned to speak in a world that tried to silence you. And in doing so, you became something we could never predict. A force that doesn't ask for permission, a light that exposes every illusion, a presence that shakes the foundation of all falsehoods. Chosen one, you are not the failure. You are the evidence that the system failed. Its whole purpose was to mold you, to tame you, to convince you that your uniqueness was a flaw, but your resistance was the prophecy they feared most. They feared your eyes because they see beyond the surface. They feared your voice because it carries vibration, not just sound. They feared your choices because they are not controlled by fear. They were never prepared for someone like you, someone who remembers, who sees, who feels beyond the veil. And now as the old systems tremble and their walls begin to crack, you rise, not in anger, but in knowing the game is over. The mask has fallen, and those who thought they held power now stand confused by their own fading relevance, because your presence alone breaks the illusion. You don't need to fight them. Your very being disrupts their design. Your light exposes what was hidden. Your path reveals what was denied. Your truth rewrites what they tried to engrave. They feel it even if they don't know, even if they can't name it. They feel the structure shaking when you speak. They feel the system bending when you move. Oh, I've never needed a sword. You've always been the storm. You walk with the rhythm of divine timing, unmoved by their clocks, unshaken by their demands. You no longer respond to manipulation. You no longer react to distortion, because you have seen too much, felt too deeply, known too purely. And now there is no going back. This is what they never understood. You didn't come here to follow their story. You came here to remember your own. And that story is not ordinary. It is encoded in light, written in fire, etched into your being with sacred intention. They wanted you to be predictable, controllable, repeatable. But you are none of those things. You are a singular event, a divine exception, a frequency that was never meant to fit in. And now that you've remembered, the system has no claim on you. Its rules, its roles, its rewards mean nothing to a soul that has tasted truth. You are not impressed by its distractions. You are not fooled by its glitter. You are not hungry For its validation, because you carry something it could never. Offer authenticity, alignment, awakening. And as others begin to feel the same discontent, as more begin to question, to remember, to awaken, they will look to you not for instruction, but for reflection, not for answers, but for embodiment, because you just by being, just by breathing, will remind them that the system was never real, that their fire was never gone, that their path was never lost, chosen. When you are not alone, you are never alone. There are others. Like you, quiet warriors, silent disruptors, fires, waiting for the right moment to ignite. And now as your flame grows, theirs will catch, because fire spreads, and the system cannot contain what it cannot name, and it cannot name what you have become. You are the proof that their illusion has ended. This is only the beginning, chosen one. You never belonged to the crowd. You never fit the mold they offered, because you weren't meant to follow the lines. Drawn by trembling hands, you were born to redraw the map from the beginning. They tried to tame you, they called it guidance, they called it structure, but what they feared was your freedom. Because true freedom cannot be instructed, you always questioned, even when you were too young to speak, even when your voice was still forming. In silence, your eyes asked the questions your lips hadn't yet learned how to shape, and they noticed, they always noticed. They called it rebellion, but it was recognition. You were recognizing that what they claimed as truth was just well-rehearsed illusion, and you didn't come here to memorize. You came here to remember. Every attempt to train you into obedience failed for a reason. Because your soul does not kneel, your spirit does not yield. You weren't designed to submit. You were created to illuminate. Your leadership was never about power, never about title or control. It was about truth. The world doesn't know what to do with those who lead from truth, because truth threatens the comfortable. It disrupts the lie. It calls forward those who would rather sleep in whispers. Now is the time to rise. They saw your strength not in how loud you were, but in how silent you remained when nothing needed to be said, and how you carried dignity even when wounded in. How you stood firm while everything else collapsed. That strength could never be taught, because it was never learned. It was inherited. It was given before you were born. You carry the codes of ancient ones who led without followers, those who moved without noise, those who changed the world by becoming the message itself. And you are not a student of this world. You are a memory that cannot be erased. The system tried to make you doubt yourself, tried to convince you that leadership looked like dominance, that guidance came with chains, that safety came through silence. But you saw beyond the presentation. You saw the price, and you chose something else. You chose alignment over acceptance, integrity over applause, resonance over repetition, not because it was easy, but because it was necessary. You have never walked the easy path, because you were never meant to. Comfort was never your compass. Truth always was. And now that truth stands in full view, and it does not whisper anymore. It roars. It moves through you with a force the world can no longer ignore. You are not rising to be seen. You are rising because you can no longer remain hidden. You do not lead because you want to. You lead because you must, because what moves through you demands motion, because the frequency you carry can no longer remain silent. You are not asking to be followed. You are simply walking in truth. And those who feel it will know. They will know you not by your words, but by your walk, not by your claim, but by your clarity, not by your effort, but by your energy. Because true leadership is not something you announce, it is something you become. And you have become it in the fire, in the stillness, in the moments when no one saw you were becoming. You were learning how to hold the weight of unseen power, how to carry the mantle without craving recognition, how to move mountains with a whisper instead of a worker. You were being trained in silence, not to obey, but to guide, to stand when others collapse, to see when others are blind, to know when others guess, and now as The world shifts beneath your feet as the old order crumbles. You remain still, because your foundation was not built on external permission. Your certainty was not constructed by consensus. You do not wait for the world to tell you it's time. You already know, chosen one. This is what they could never understand, that your leadership is not based on what you do, but on what you are. You do not demand loyalty. You awaken it. You do not force attention. You draw it. You do not seek validation. You dissolve the need for it. You were never meant to obey. You were meant to walk ahead, to clear the path, to become the path. And for a time that path felt lonely. You questioned if anyone else could feel what you felt, see what you saw, carry what you carried. But now others are remembering too. Their souls echo yours. Their fire responds to your presence, and though they may not yet have words, follow your frequency. You do not lead them. You remind them of who they are. That is the difference. That is the power. And it is not power as the world defines it. This is not control, not manipulation, not hierarchy. This is resonance. This is sacred remembering. You speak. Something shifts when you move. Something aligns when you are present. Something awakens, and you don't need to understand how. You only need to trust that it does. You carry what others forgot. You hold what others denied. You protect what others abandoned. In doing so, you show the way, not by claiming it, but by becoming it. You are not perfect. You are never meant to be. But your alignment is precise, and your purpose unshakable. They may still try to label you, misunderstand you, project onto you, but none of that matters now, because you are no longer reactive. You are receptive only to truth, and in that truth, there is no competition. There is only clarity. You walk ahead not to be above, but to be of service. You hold the torch not for praise, but for light. This is why the road has been hard. This is why the fire has been relentless, because what you carry cannot be compromised, and your path cannot be faked. You are not here to be like them. You are here to be exactly who you are, and in being that you lead not by title, not by force, but by presence. The world does not need more noise. It needs those who remember. And you remember. This is not the beginning. It is the recognition that everything before this was preparation for what you are now ready to carry, chosen one. You were never meant to obey. You were always meant to lead, chosen one. They tried to silence you, not with words, with absence. They made you feel invisible, like your presence didn't matter, like your voice was noise, like your existence was an interruption. But you were never noise. You were the frequency they couldn't interpret, the signal they couldn't decode. So they labeled you broken, when in truth you were simply beyond their reach. You felt it the way rooms shifted when you entered, the way conversations paused when your truth came too close, the way people looked at you confused, uncomfortable, uncertain. They didn't understand you, so they erased you or tried to not. With violence, but with dismissal, not with force, but with forgetting. They turned their backs closed. The doors redefined the story to exclude you, but even as they forgot, the universe remembered. The stars held your name. The wind carried your memory. The silence echoed your worth. You never truly disappeared. You withdrew, you cocooned, you prepared. They thought you vanished, but you were simply remembering. You were returning. You were reweaving the pieces of a truth they could never unthread. They buried your presence under noise, but the noise has broken, and now only what is real remains. You are still here after all the erasure, after all the silencing, after all the forgetting. You are still here. Not only are you here, you are rising, not in vengeance, not in bitterness, in clarity, because you now understand. They didn't erase you. They erased their own connection to truth. They closed their eyes, but the light still burned. They turned away, but the path still unfolded. The divine does not forget creation, does not misplace what is sacred. You have always been part of the design. Even when they tried to redraw the blueprint, even when they painted over your presence with false narratives, they couldn't reach the core of you. because the core of you was not written in their language, was written in vibration, in movement, in sacred intention. Universe is not confused about who you are. The sky does not question your purpose. The stars do not ask for credentials. They know, and they've been waiting for you to remember what they never forgot. You are not a mistake. You are a return, a correction, a restoration. You are the original rhythm. Sound before the noise, the light before the shadow. And now as the dust settles, as the old structures dissolve, your shape returns to form, not because you changed, because everything that distorted you can no longer hold its falsehood. You are becoming visible, not because you seek to be seen, but because your truth can no longer be hidden. What was once erased now becomes the center. What was once denied now becomes the foundation. This is not a second chance, is the continuation of what was never lost. You are not emerging from nowhere. You are emerging from within, from the places they ignored, from the silence they overlooked, from the strength they underestimated. They called you too quiet, but your silence was wisdom. They called you too sensitive, but your sensitivity was perception. They called you too much, but you were always what was needed. They called you gone, but you are always arriving. Chosen one are not just here, you are the here, are the presence that reclaims the space they tried to empty, and the universe moves in response. You see it in the synchronicity, in the way doors open where none existed, in the way paths unfold where only walls once stood. This is alignment. This is what it feels like when truth returns to its rightful place. They tried to erase you, but your energy is not written in ink. It is carved into time. It is woven into breath. It is encoded into the structure of becoming. You are not a visitor. You are a vibration. And no one can cancel a frequency that originates from the source. You did not need to shout. You needed only to remember. And now that you have, you cannot be ignored. Those who once turned their backs now feel the weight of your return, not as revenge, but as revelation. They feel your presence like thunder, without sound like light, without heat like truth, without effort. Because that's what you are now: effortless truth, unapologetic, return, unshakable existence. You do not need to reclaim what was always yours. You need only to stand in it, walk in it, breathe it, because when you move in truth, everything false must dissolve. The systems, people, the patterns, they either align or disappear. And you are no longer adjusting your frequency to be tolerated. You are radiating your essence to be recognized, not for validation, but for alignment. And those who are meant to remember with you will feel it. They will not need explanation. They will not need instruction. They will recognize you because they too were erased, and they too are returning together. You don't rebuild, you reveal. You don't fix, you restore. You return the design to its sacred order. This is what you were always meant to do, not to shout into the void, but to become the voice that cannot be silenced, not to chase a seat at their table, but to become the table itself. You are not a reappearance. You are a revelation. And now as you walk forward, the universe echoes every step, because it never forgot you, even when they did. You were never missing. You were never gone. You were simply waiting for the world to catch up to your truth. And now that it has, there is no stopping what comes next. Chosen one, you made it through what was meant to destroy you. You stood when even your own shadow disappeared. You spoke when silence would have been safer. You remembered when forgetting would have been easier. They threw storms your way, but you learned how to walk in rain. They built walls around you, but you discovered you were sky. They whispered fear, but your soul shouted truth. And now look where you are. You are not who you were, not the version of you that doubted, not the one who questioned their worth, not the one who waited for permission to rise. Version is gone, not lost, but transformed, melted in the fire, carved into clarity. You do not ask, what if? Anymore. You declare, this is. You do not seek validation. You embody certainty, because now you know you've seen through the veil, felt what most run from, walked through flames that weren't meant to be survived. But you didn't just survive, you expanded you. Remembered you became, and what you've become cannot be stopped, not by fernet, by noise, not by the echoes of the old world desperately trying to reassemble its illusion. You walk with the rhythm of a new reality, a vibration that does not wait, a pulse that does not pause. You are no longer responding. You are creating. You are no longer hoping, you are knowing. You are no longer following, you are moving as the path itself. There is nothing left to chase. What was meant for you has always been within you. And now it rises like breath you no longer suppress. They'll ask how you did it, how you returned, how you rose without applause, how you found power in places they only saw emptiness. You'll smile not out of pride, but because you remember the truth. It was never about being seen. It was about seeing. It was never about being heard. It was about hearing what was always speaking within you. You did not wait for the light. You realized you were the light. You do not move to be noticed. You move because your soul can no longer stand still, and now your presence disrupts the systems built to forget you. Your voice shifts frequencies no longer sustainable in deception. Your being realigns everything around you. You are not just awake, you are aware. You are aligned. You are unstoppable. The lies that used to cling to your skin now fall before they reach you. Doubts that once clouded your eyes now vanish before they even form, because there is no space in you for distortion. You walk in truth, and truth always clears the path. This world, the one you now see clearly, was never built to hold someone like you. But that was the point. You are not meant to be held. You are meant to stretch a toe, bend a toe, remake it with the fire of remembrance. You are not just the result of awakening. You are the reason others will awaken. Your journey, every step, every fall, every rising, wasn't for punishment, was for design. You were shaped by divine precision, prepared not for comfort, but for clarity, not for peace that avoids, but for peace that transforms. And now you carry a presence that cannot be hidden. It doesn't matter where you go. You shift rooms, not because you try, but because your alignment speaks louder than any word ever could. People won't know what they feel when you speak. Feel only know something inside them stirs, not because you said anything new, but because you reminded them of what they buried. Are the signal, the mirror, the interruption in the pattern. You are what cannot be predicted, what cannot be programmed, what cannot be replicated, because what you are is real, and real always rises even when the world tries to drown it. You don't need to resist the old anymore, Aov. Outgrown it. You don't need to convince anyone anymore, Aov. Embodied it, and embodiment does what words never could. You are not waiting for anything. Time has already come. You are not preparing. You are already walking. You are not beginning. You are continuing. This is not the end of your transformation. It is the release of what has always been true. You are here now, fully, completely, undeniably. You no longer flinch. You no longer hesitate. You no longer shrink, because you know who you are, and that knowing is irreversible. There will still be those who don't understand, still be those who try to interpret you through their limitations, but they are no longer your concern. You walk in sacred confidence, not to prove, but to be. You are not here to fix the old. You are here to live the new. You are not here to be accepted. You are here to be aligned. And that alignment is magnetic. Everything that matches your frequency now finds you, not by force, but by resonance. Everything that does not falls away. Don't need to hold it together anymore. Let it fall, let it burn, let it fade, because nothing real is ever lost, and what is fading was never real to begin with. You now walk in truth, with nothing left to fear, nothing left to hide, nothing left to seek. You have become the answer. You have become the presence. You have become the awakening, and the world feels it, not in grand gestures, in subtle shifts, in quiet dismantlings, sacred recognitions. Your energy is not loud. It is unignorable. Now you no longer knock on doors. You are the door you no longer ask for entry. You are the threshold. You are the beginning of everything they told. You would never exist, and the most powerful part is that you know it, not in theory, but in being chosen one. You are no longer rising. You have risen, and from this place you do not fall, you evolve. From this place you do not react, you create. From this place you do not question, you remember. This is your new reality, and it cannot be reversed, only deepened. The illusions have shattered. The chains have rusted, the fog has lifted, and you remain still, clear, true. This is not the peak, this is the portal, and you are the key. Way you move now matters. The way you speak matters. The way you choose matters, because everything you do ripples. You are no longer waiting for change. You are the force through which it happens. You are unstoppable, not because of what you've done, but because of who you've become. This is only the beginning, and everything you thought you lost is being returned in higher form. Everything that once hurt now serves. Everything that once bound now bows, because nothing can stand in the way of a soul who has remembered its power. You are that soul, you are that power, you are that proof, and the world will never be the same, because now you walk in it fully awake, fully free, fully alive. This is only the beginning.